Um, as he says, yeah, I think it's just being clear and precise. And I know we said about Tristan Tate the other day, he's very eloquent, and exactly what's going on in his brain is what comes out his mouth, and that's kind of like the goal to get to. I think one of the things I've had to work on with conversation skills is understanding physically. I forget that I'm quite tall, yes. And I'm like, I'm an all right size, I'm quite a big fella.
Yes.
I don't, because I'm just me,
yes.
I don't feel like a big fella.
Yeah.
Like I know I am,
yeah.
and I'm not as big as I used to be. Probably lost a little bit of weight, and like 95 kilograms at the moment. I used to be close to 100. That's another conversation. But when I get passionate and excited, sometimes if I'm in the wrong, no, not the wrong. Sometimes when I get passionate and excited, I worry, or I notice that for people who are not as confident, I'm conscious to not come across aggressive. Because of my physical stature, I've come to understand that that's something I need to focus on sometimes in the situation. And obviously I used to be a teacher and I used to work with kids, so I think it's something that I got somewhat good at. Yeah. But also you can lean into that physical authority that sometimes, not to scare them, but it helps having that physical authority, because compared to, let's say, a very small female teacher, I'm at a huge advantage. Just the stature. Kids are naturally look up to you, literally. So yeah, I guess conversationally, something I've tried to be aware of is how I come across, and I think I do push people back on some of the things that they say, but I need to be aware that sometimes that can come across as aggressive, and that's something that I've kind of had to work on sometimes. I don't know about you, what you've kind of been working on.
Personally, my biggest paradigm shifting mindset that I had, which has been working for everybody that I talk to, is recognizing the inner child of the other person. What I mean by that is, when you talk to your best friend, even though you've grown up, let's say you're 30 years old, you're talking to each other, you still see that inner child. You're still like your old mate, Josh, Tom or whatever. And you can still always talk to that child. And even though maybe your best friend gets really big, looks really scary, gets all the tattoos, he's still gonna be your mate.
Yeah.
And I think every guy who, even though they sometimes look very scary, they all possess that inner child. If you can recognize, if you can try to imagine what you would have looked like when you were a kid, and just talk to that person, all of the other appearances actually just fall away, and you can just connect better. I understand that you are just another guy that's like me. I know you have all the fears that I have. And I have all the insecurities, but I know that you understand me because I can see right through you that maybe you are not very worried about my insecurities. Maybe you're worried about yours. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I can connect to a deeper layer. When I see, let's say, like a 70-year-old, I actually started seeing this in my father. That was because my father and I don't have a really great relationship. He has essentially abandoned the family for him to do what he wants to do. He didn't have any responsibilities in his mind. So I always demonized him. I always thought that, why did you do that? Why would you abandon your family? The more I grow into an adult, I realize, why would you do that? I understand less. Why would you? Okay, and then I start to see him from his inner child perspective. And I ask him questions. What happened in your childhood? And as he explains all those dark things that he had to go through, and one thing that he told me was very shocking. He said to me, he said from his perspective, I hate my own dad way more than how much you hate me. And I realized that's ancestral. And ever since that conversation, I started to recognize the inner child in him, and I started to talk to that child. And from that point on, I could see the inner child in everybody. Even if I see a very ignorant I don't know, Korean grandpa that's looking around, judging everybody. I can still see he's just a dude who is very defensive and he's got just problems of his own. I can't hate him for that because I don't know what his background is. That has been the biggest transformative communicational skill that I cultivated in the last few years. Yeah.
Powerful, man. Really, really powerful. You come across, I understand you said that. Thank you for sharing that as well. But that's super powerful.
Right.
Meeting people on that level and not many people get to that level of awareness.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story that out of that pain that you've obviously felt, it's actually given you an unbelievable tool in a way to connect with people in a way that gets rid of all of the muscles, the tattoos, whatever it is.
Yes,
goes
absolutely.
straight to them. That's amazing, man. Absolutely. And it's funny because, like, obviously we were just having a conversation now. We took a break because it was too hot, and then we just had, like, I don't know, it must have been like an hour, 45 minutes.
It felt like
we had another conversation. We went deep. We talked about psychedelics. We talked about God, the devil, conspiracy theories, the nature of good and evil. We went down a crazy rabbit hole of conversation just then. And then that kind of led us to the point where we kind of said, oh, it's interesting how we just fell into that conversation then. And once we know the camera and microphone is on, there is some small tweak, no matter how authentic you try to be. Well, I mean, and I kind of explained to you, like, the goal with this and why I started this and why I wanted to keep it very casual was so that you could capture those little magic moments. And even though that's the goal, the conversation that we had just now that just erupted and was amazing, like, it wasn't captured. And would that have been the same conversation if there was a mic and if there was a camera on? So
that would be an art that you can explore and cultivate and master, bro.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Because that's interesting, man. Like, that gets to the core of things, you know? That's
because you're very all-encompassing, you're very open-minded, you can talk about anything, and because you have the ability, you can draw the most interesting out of anybody. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't actually even have to be people who are into self-help.
Yeah.
I believe that everybody has this desire to be the best in whatever they're doing. It could be talking about coffee, how they make the filter in coffee, and then
which is brilliant, by the way.
Yes, and then out of that, you can shift the conversation in a way that's more beneficial for the listeners and inspirational, explore a very interesting topic out of it. Yeah.
We were just talking now, so after having that conversation and after making the note that the conversation slightly changes when the camera and when there's microphones rolling, we then started speaking about, and which is when we just kind of re-entered here, we started speaking about, what is the biggest thing that we've both been working on for our communication? And that's kind of where we are here now. But one thing that I think is really, really interesting and it's so simple that anyone can do is, and I don't know why, it just makes everything more interesting. It's like, ask people about what they're passionate about. Like, and it's not just more interesting for them. I mean, it's a great hack, I'm sure, in like how to win friends and influence people. Like, ask people what they're interested in, because if you're interested in it, you're going to enjoy talking about it. So then they feel good when they're talking to you, and you can use it as like a networking tool. But selfishly for yourself, ask people what they're passionate about, because it's just a more exciting conversation, and then you start to think about what you're passionate about, and it changes the energy completely. And I'd say, like, it's one of the things that I heard it on a piece of advice years ago, probably when I was trying to get better at dating. There's this channel called Charisma on Command. Don't know if you ever come across it. It was like one of the OG channels on YouTube, talking about body language. It used to break down celebrity interviews and be like, right, Chris Pratt, he always makes people laugh because of X, and look, people tend not to like this person, why is that? And I loved that channel, and one of the things that they said, and I took from, like, I just took it and I was like, right, I'll do that, ask people like what they're passionate about. I don't know, like, I think that's a really good bit of advice for anyone.
Yes.
It's like, just talk about what people are passionate about.
Yes.
And you have more, if you yourself, you have more interesting conversations.
Absolutely. And one thing I notice in people who are amazing with other people, there's one common trait that I keep seeing over and over again, is that those people who are always liked by everybody, they love everybody.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think for me, that's been the hardest thing, because I'm very selective about who I let into my space.
Yeah.
So I filter out people, and that comes across a bit arrogant,
Uh-huh.
a bit defensive, a bit, like standoffish. And I realized that I'd love to know. You seem to like a lot of people. You approached me at the gym. I was working out by myself.
You had cool tattoos.
Yes, you complimented on my tattoos. And that has to come from being open-minded and also liking a stranger on some level.
Yeah.
Have you always been that way? Or is that something that you consciously worked on?
I think, to go deep, I think I've consciously worked on it, but I think, and I'll be honest, I felt quite a lot of hurt and pain in my life for reasons that personally I don't think at the time or I deserved. And I still, looking back, if I think a lot of times if people were to see the situations,
Yes.
I think they would probably, and again, I don't want to say that like people act in a way because they act in a way and people get hurt, but I think I've had quite a lot of situations in my life where I've been really deeply hurt, and it wasn't obvious to me. Like, I will always try and put the blame on myself and say, right, well, Tom, what did you do? Because you've got to take responsibility for everything in your life. And it doesn't help to be like, oh, it was all them. And this is one of the things, if I'm dating a girl, one of the things I would always ask is like, oh, how's your relationship with your ex, or what do you think of your ex? If they're like, oh, they're a toxic piece of shit, fuck them. I'm like, right, you haven't dealt with the internal stuff inside of you that you need to deal with to understand that you both contributed to that. Now, with that being said, like, I'm aware of that, and I do always try and point back and be like, right, sometimes too much, like, right, well, what did you do to cause that situation? But there's been it's been a theme of my life, is there's a few things that have come up where I've been a bit like, what the hell was that? Like, I'm not sure I deserve that. Like, and I know that can come across as like a coping mechanism perhaps, but I'm trying to be like honest here that like, really, like, the way things certainly have been handled, like, ow, I don't think it needed to hurt that much, or like, it should have been handled like, I don't think I fully deserve that. Now, I now know that through experiencing quite a lot of pain and ups and downs, it's made me much more compassionate. And I know that those lessons were so necessary for me, like so necessary, and that I can approach people now, hopefully quite compassionately, because I'm very aware of times in my life where I've just been like at rock bottoms and really, really hurt. And I think I've got like the personality of like a lover, like I'm quite, we're both artists really at heart, I think. So I think from kind of having those experiences of hurt, I try and come in at a level, well, I think just naturally now that I'm able to come in at a level of allowing people to space to be themselves and wherever they are at the moment. But I don't necessarily know it's something that I could have chosen to do. And I think, because this is where you should take responsibility for everything. I think at times I have been quite arrogant. So I think those things in my life that have knocked me down to rock bottom, I think they're the counterbalance for perhaps the arrogance that has been there. So I'm very grateful for them in the end, because I do feel that whether I like it or not now, it's like I'm able to sort of approach a lot of people and connect with a lot of people, all ages. But I don't know if it's necessarily something I've planned or cultivated, but just because of, similar to yourself with your experience you had with your father, you're kind of gifted these problems and challenges.
Absolutely.
And now that's what really forms you. So I mean, I don't know, maybe other people would say different things, but for me, that's kind of my understanding. And also, I loved your fucking tattoos.
Thanks,
Like, I was
brother.
looking at your
Appreciate it.
tattoos, like, they're so clean. And you actually told me you got them all done in like one go.
1 month, man.
1 month.
Yeah, because I realized, man, one time, okay, this tattoo was basically my first tattoo. And this took a long ass time. It took me 1 year for me to come up with the design and then really conceptualize it. And then for 1 year, I didn't think about any other tattoos. And then because I'm in the music space, I realized that visuals matter so much for music.
Yeah.
And I realized, okay, what's the type of artist that I want to look at and feel like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's the sort of, he represents a vibe that his music presents.
Yeah.
And I basically took photos of myself in a room, and I had my undies on. I took selfies, right, and set the camera there. And I would, take the front profile, side profile, back profile, go back on my computer, and literally started designing. Look at a bunch of tattoo designs, and I thought, okay, this looks like that. What are the other people who have really cool tattoos that I resonate with? Started designing it, and I thought, let's design this person as if it's a character, like a Sims character. That's how I did it, and I don't regret one bit.
No, mate, they look sick. Have you got any on your back as well?
I got a huge 2 skulls tattoo,
How do you?
Yeah.
Mate, I was wondering if you had like a back tattoo.
Yeah.
Mate, I really love them and like the detail. And just like, I mean, people say what you want about tattoos, like the shark. I hadn't seen that shark before. That's fucking class. Mate, I think tattoos are fucking cool. And it's funny, like you said, when you designed yourself, you go through my camera roll, like there's pictures of me in the mirror where I've like drawn Sharpies on myself.
Yes, I've done that too.
Like, well, how does this look like this? And congratulations, because you've obviously you have to invest in tattoos. So you've obviously invested in like a real quality artist as well.
I think there are 2 schools of thought when it comes to tattoos. 1, every tattoo must mean a lot to you.
Yeah.
And 2, I realized that me as a person is just a shell. I'm just another person in 7 billion people filled planet Earth.
Yeah.
And I realized that I don't matter in a liberating way.
Yeah.
So
Love that, man. I don't matter in a liberating way.
Exactly. So
cool.
In a sense, I wanted to design a person that could offer value, even if I'm a stranger to other people. They can look at me, and I want to be a person that's eye pleasant, eye candy. Yeah. So I want to offer value in as many ways possible. One of those happens to be tattoo.
Nice. So, a couple of things from that, man, because I love that, and I love how you sort of designed yourself as a character, and that's a great way to think of life. Is like, what character do I want to be? Let's fucking design the character. I'm gonna make the coolest fucking character ever. I've got a question to ask you about your artistry, which we haven't really touched on, but I also wanted to touch on the idea of like tattoos don't always have to mean something, which is interesting. And again, say what you want about tattoos, up to you. Like, I have a few tattoos here that really, really mean something to me. I've also got a few that I've got when I was drunk. I've got my friend's company logo. We both got tattooed at the same time. Like, I think they're kind of hidden down here. Like, unless you kind of see me naked, you don't know about them. But I love those tattoos just as much as the ones that really kind of mean something to me. And I think, so and in that way, then they all do really mean something. And like, if you are thinking of getting a tattoo, don't worry too much about like, well, is it going to have like the most meaning to? Can I explain the meaning to others? If it has meaning or to you at a time, for me, the way I see them, and this is, different strokes for different folks. For me, it's like, sometimes they're a promise to yourself. Like, for me, this one here, which is like the person looking up at like an eye, for me, this is a reminder to myself to be not guided by my ego, but to be guided by something higher. God. Now, I don't give a fuck what you think about it. Like, for me, I look at that every day, and if I am not living my life like that, it's like a promise to myself. It's like I've gone, right, well, this was your promise, and I've like fucking written it down on me, where it's like, you promised to do this. So you can't walk around with that and not be doing that, because you're gonna look like a fraud. So for me, that's kind of the psychology behind why I've got a couple of them. I don't know if you can resonate with that at all.
Sick. For me, I think it has to you have to know yourself. If you don't really know what you want in life, I knew that I didn't have so much an ego at that point of my life that I knew that even if I got fuck all whatever tattoos, I knew I wouldn't be so attached to it. I wouldn't beat myself up over it. So it was easier. It was an easier decision for me to make to get all these tattoos. But when we speak about you can get whatever tattoos, you don't have to worry so much about it.
Yeah.
We have to be careful because you know your group moves only as fast as the slowest person of your group, right?
Okay.
So when we say, oh, don't worry about it, get whatever, they might get face tattoos and just get swords right next to them and they're trying to get a job. You know, we can't do that. Idea. So you have to know yourself. If you are a type of person that is very sensitive and very emotional, definitely put thought into it. Don't just get it. Don't just get it out of like, I want to look cool. If you're going to look back on it and be like, oh, I don't really resonate with this.
Yeah. I think that's a very sensible thing to say. And I think, a lot of people kind of sometimes get it out of hurt as well. And just make sure, like you said, just make sure you don't regret it. Like, if it comes from a good place, then maybe it's a good thing to move forward with, consider it. But yeah, if it's out of like, let's say you've gone through a breakup and you're like gonna get your ex's name tattooed. If you're in an emotional place, like you said, maybe have a think about it. Put it on your wall for a bit. Like, don't just go, you know, and again, but then sometimes if you get a tattoo and it's like an impulsive thing. I knew a girl who I met in Thailand actually. I saw on her Instagram, she'd like got this little sun. We were actually speaking about her tattoos and she had a tattoo that said like, be kind, but she didn't quite like it. And then she had this really amazing time away and she got this nice little sun decoration around it. It's very impulsive. I think that's really nice, you know, so it's hard. You know, you don't always have to plan it for months and months in advance, but yeah, I think again, like you said, be considerate if you're like in an emotional place. Don't do it as like a hurt knee-jerk reaction thing that could be.
Do you have plans to cover your body at all or anything like that?
So I've got some bits I'm gonna add to this, around this arm here, and then potentially on the lower part of this arm, and then a little bit, I've got one on my back, it's potentially like a little bit down there, but yeah, I don't know, I'll see what happens, I'm open to it, but yeah, I don't know, I'm definitely gonna focus on one at a time, but I kind of want someone to plan it with me, like I want to go to an artist as like a consultation and say, look, I don't want a tattoo, but like, can you sort of balance me out a little bit? Because I've sort of designed it by myself at this point.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Tattoos definitely like represent your mindsets, I really do find. So if you're not happy with where you are, it's probably not a good time for you to get tattoos.
Yes.
Because I remember when I was in high school, man, I was 16 years old. I got my Sharpie and I drew like a crow and like drew branches and whatnot. I looked back on it like a week ago and I was thinking, thank fucking God I didn't get that tattoo. Oh my God, that looks so bad. Because I was trying so hard to look cool. My intention was not right.
Yeah, that's true. And I think a lot of people fall into that. And I'll be honest with you, I got my first tattoo when I was 14. My parents still don't know about it, they might do now. But I got my first tattoo and it doesn't even there's a story behind it. But when I was 14, and luckily it's on an area that is not on display very often. But thank goodness I didn't get it on like my arm or on my, it's not a bad tattoo by any means, but I was a stupid fucking 14-year-old. This was one of the problems of being in Cyprus. If you wanted to do something, like who was this tattoo artist who fucking let me get a tattoo? I was clearly 14. What the hell? Fuck's sake. So yeah, like you have good ideas when you're a teenager, but that's why you need adults.
Yes, that's right. You think are good, but not really.
To guide you and to be strict sometimes. Yeah, man, I wanted to ask you a little bit then, kind of about your artistry and about everything you're doing and like what your big vision is moving forward. Like what's the goals? What are you moving towards at the moment? And you know, like we haven't really talked about your art and yourself as a musician. And yeah, I'd love to just sort of dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I'm in a position where I can travel around the world freely. For that to keep happening, I need to keep my business up with my music production for other clients. And while I'm doing that, I'm also building my artist profile. I'm also a singer. I also produce, mix and master all my stuff myself. So basically, I'm able to separate the business side that can help me fund my artistry and also help other people grow and collaborate, get a lot of leads that will leak into my artist career. Right now, my focus is building my business up while keeping up with my music, release at least one song every 2 weeks. It's not too hard for me because I've gotten the flow of everything. My goal would be to build a business, build a platform where other producers can join and really collaborate together and help each other on ideas. Also learn how to make money online, because that will liberate a lot of your stresses in terms of time freedom and also locational freedom. I want to build that first. My side project right now is the artistry. In the end, I have a strong belief in myself and my music that it will do well. But it's interesting, brother. Even though I separate those two, in the end, it comes down to developing myself. When I become a better leader, a better person who can offer value in my business, that leaks into my music. So everything actually just all flows naturally, comes together. And meeting people like yourself, man, you will definitely have an impact in the way I write music. I don't know how, subconsciously it'll flow into me. So I've got a whole ecosystem of just positive feedback and just everybody's trying to push each other. I don't let anybody who is negative in my life. So my music's only going to be good vibes, offering value, which is the mentality that you must have as a businessman, so it goes well into the business side too. So that's basically where I'm at right now.
That is awesome, man. That's awesome. And it's interesting that how you do one thing is how you do everything. And these things, we often externally view them as separate entities, but it's all you.
Yeah.
It's all coming from you, man.
Exactly right.
They're all expressions of yourself.
Yes.
Yesterday when we had a chat, heart of an artist, mind of an entrepreneur, body of an athlete.
That's it. You can't fail if you have those three.
Those are the ones.
Yeah, the body really keeps your mental space healthy.
Yeah.
You can't have a bad day if you have a really healthy, strong body. You will look yourself in the mirror and at least be proud of one thing, your body's right. And once you have that positive mindset, you have the ability and willpower to push your entrepreneurial side of your life. And then once you have that, you can fund it to work on your art.
Yeah.
So all those three trickle down into each other. But I would say like the biggest thing to attack first would be the body. I don't know if you resonate with that or not, because if you see like a millionaire who is not really eating healthy, very big, waking up in the morning feeling really down and groggy, I don't know if I would rather be that person or me who is not a millionaire, but still in a very healthy mindset with positive people.
Yeah, that's great. And I know Luke Belmar, who I listen to a good amount of, says something like this. It's like, make your body a Lamborghini.
That's it.
I love that, and it's always stuck with me that it's like, yeah, make your body a Lamborghini. I'm not there yet, but like that, anyone can respect that. Like, yeah, if I see someone driving a Lamborghini, then they get out and they're like overweight, I'm like, well done. But you know, if you've got everything in order, your finances, your body, your mental state, your spirituality, that's really impressive. Now, it was interesting what you said, because you said like kind of how they all inform each other. Start with your body, then this, then that. Kind of the way that I was thinking as you were saying that. How would I draw that as a flow chart? Like I like to get things out as a flow chart. You saw earlier the flow chart I was making. The way I would draw that is all of them just all pointing to each other. Like they all inform each other in every way. and that's a powerful system because that's a system that allows you to ascend. But a big thing that I was thinking about was like the one I'd probably put at the top is the artistry, because I think it's that whole thing, and we'll get kind of what's the word, like hippie about it now, but it's like lead with your heart. I think you should lead with your heart, not your mind. Your body is a tool. Like let your heart lead, get the direction. Your mind is going to give you the technical ability to make that vision or that guidance from your heart a reality, and your body is the machine that is going to make sure that you're able to carry out the tasks that need to be, undertook. And one of the meditations that I've been doing for a while, and particularly in various times in my life, but there was a time where I was doing it every day. And part of the meditation is to connect with that heart feeling and understand that there's like neurons in your heart, and that you should spend some part of the day connecting with your heart. Now, I don't know exactly what I mean to that, if I'm literally referring to the organ, connect to your heart organ, but there is something in here. There's a reason that we say like we're heartbroken.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't actually make any sense. Like, we feel it here.
Yes.
That is, if we're heartbroken, we feel it here. When we feel love, we feel it here. We don't feel it up here.
Yes.
So there is something that refers to, and you can connect to that. And I mean, people would probably go into like chakras and all of this. Like, I'm not deep into that. I don't know. Maybe that's kind of what I'm pointing to. I don't know. But I think spending some time trying to find a way to connect to your heart every day, and then allow that to kind of be your compass. Use your mind to then act on the direction that your heart has given you, and then your body, make sure it is in shape so you have the power and ability to actually act on those things.
What do you think is the biggest tool that you have to work on your heart, and that to make sure that it's in the right place?
Listening. Listening and feeling. And your mind is logic, your heart is feeling. And this is often what people say about the difference between men and women. Women are much more emotionally driven, which is amazing, because women feel things much more deeply than we do as men.
So intuitive, man.
They're so intuitive. Like, they come into your woman, your girl, she knows when you've had a bad day, she knows what's up. She might not be always amazing at asking the questions to find out how, but like, they know intuitively. They know how people are feeling. Not all, some to different extents, but that's amazing. That's the feminine gift, is being connected to that. The masculine gift is being logical and is being able to execute and is being able to build. But we have both inside us. We have masculine and feminine inside both of us. And we have to connect with both. And I know there's a big sort of masculine push at the moment, which I think is important.
Yes.
I think is very important. But part of masculinity is also understanding the femininity, the polarity inside you as well. And I think connecting to the emotional side of you, which is the feminine side of you, just as women connect to the masculine side of themselves to execute on tasks, like, that's necessary for them to exist in the world. We have to connect with both aspects of ourselves. If we live more in one than the other, that's often where we see problems. Like, if a man is overly feminine, they often have a lot of turmoil in their life. If a woman is overly masculine, they struggle with relationships. So I don't know. I don't know fully what I'm saying. I don't know. Maybe the ultimate is that there's the masculine, and feminine. But personally, my intuition is that you need to connect and understand both. And I think that understanding your heart and connecting to that is a feminine trait and is something that you should connect to. And the best way you can do that is by listening and feeling. And a really good way that you can kind of get into that is recall a memory, like take some deep breaths, really slow yourself down. Recall a memory where you felt full, you felt on purpose, you felt excited, you felt just at ease, you felt at peace. For me, I always refer back to this memory where I grew up in Cyprus. There's this beautiful long walk that nobody ever goes there, man. Like, it's just, you have this beautiful sunset, this beautiful nature to yourself every night if you want it. And I'll always go, and it's like an 8 kilometer walk or run, whatever you want to do, watch the sunset And I always feel just at peace and connected. And the first time I discovered this place, oh my goodness, like the feeling of just peace and freedom and just at ease and nothing else mattered. I was watching the sunset, I was on my own, I felt connected to God. I guess that's the point, connected to God. I think that's the thing that I try and remember, that's the memory that comes up, and I try and remember, right, what feelings did I feel? How warm was it? Was there a breeze? And I bring that feeling back into now. And then after I've done that, through the meditation, then ask, right, because that's you connecting to your heart, that feeling just bursting forth from there. And I hope I'm explaining this okay. But then from there, ask yourself the question, has my heart, has God got anything it wants me to know right now? Is there anything? And I literally have a diary of, I call it like heart messages. I know this sounds like really like camp or whatever. I've got a little pink diary of hearts all over it. I literally have like a list of like heart messages day to day. And it's like things that I felt guided on. And like one of the things, like, and it's funny, like all of those things, when I look, I like to go back and read them. All of those things that I did were the action steps that I had to take to get where I am now and have like, you know, the growing, sort of building success. Like one of them was, you need to get out of this country and, you know, you're going to meet some amazing people. You're going to meet some amazing people. You need to get to this next stage so you can meet these amazing people. This is what you need to do. And it's funny, when I didn't act on something that I felt guided to act on, that's all that, it would be like you were stuck at a level. That's the message that would keep coming up. And until I acted on that thing, and look, I don't know what that is. Maybe it's not heart, maybe it's God, maybe that's me, my way of praying, I don't know. And I try and sort of pray more now than I do sort of exercises like that, and try and tap into it as much as I can. And I think the goal is to tap into that in every situation and then be guided all the time. And I guess that's what people would say when they have a close relationship with God. And that's something that I've come to realize. I'm much more comfortable using the word God now than I was before, because I realize when I'm explaining things like that, like connecting to your heart, connecting all this, I think what I was actually explaining was connecting to God, but my ego or whatever at the time didn't feel comfortable. I had a bad relationship with the idea of God, but more and more I've come to realize that, you know, God isn't my perception of what God is, or like someone else's perception, or like a religious perception. It's like a connection to something, and those tools have helped me to kind of get closer to God and experience those things. So it's funny, man, like you asked, like how come, like I'm still really finding that more and more I'm like much closer to God, and I'm finding a lot of people are coming into my life who are very, very happy to speak about God, and they have a relationship with God, and I welcome that, because it's still something I'm insecure about talking about, because I know there's judgment attached to that. So yeah, man, like I guess like kind of to go all the way back, it's like find a way to connect with God or connect with your heart, however best you can describe that at the moment. That's the thing you should be connecting to. So yeah, I've said a lot, and I don't know how specific that's been in terms of an answer.
God is a spectrum, or this one place at the highest place that we are trying to always get at? Like, because you can say, okay, even though you're not at the place that you want to be, there might still be God where you are. Does that mean God is a spectrum? Or because you're not there yet, you are only just reaching for it?
So one of my greatest like sort of mentors, teachers, who's not with us anymore, I've read everything that they put out, was Wayne Dyer, and has had a huge impact on my life. And one of the things that he says is, God is everywhere, and all religious teachings teach this. God is everywhere. God is everywhere, and we kind of tend to think of that as like some like entity checking up on us, like, oh look, I'm here, I've got you, you can't hide, like I saw what you were doing. And that's, for me, my understanding, that's not it. It's like God is everywhere, which means that there is nothing that is not God, and that means that there's also God inside you. And I know that that could come across as almost profanity, And when people say that, like, oh, and I hate that when people are like, oh, I'm God. It's like, well, come on. But in a way, there is divinity inside all of us, and there is God inside all of us, because God is everywhere, God is everything, and that leaves nothing out. And this kind of leads back to manifestation. If God is in all things and also in you, you're already connected to whatever that thing is that you want. Whatever that thing is that you want, you're already connected to. So you just have to kind of allow that connection to happen for that to come into your life. Which is a really, really interesting thought. And to answer your question with, like, is it a spectrum? I think it's a connection, and I mean, I don't want to say like I have answers, because I don't, because the more I feel like I have a relationship with God.
Yeah.
And I know it's real. But it's an internal, it's an inside. I've never found it outside. The more I go inside, the more I find that connection with God, and realize that I'm connected to it at all times, or him, her, God. And I think God as a word, I mean, words, it's kind of like the best way we have to describe a certain feeling. And for me at the moment, God is the most appropriate word to use to describe that relationship. I find it very difficult to be very like specific about it, because I don't know if it is something you can put into a flow chart or something you can quantify, you know?
as much as you would love to.
I would love to. I would love to give people a flow chart and say, right, God's here, you're here.
But I do think that there's a reason why there's a saying, your body is a temple. You do all your prayers within your body. You can, I do think that the reason some people go into meditative states when they're working out is because they are so connected with their body. So it doesn't mean that you will find exactly what God is, but you will see a glimpse, you'll feel connected to a higher version of yourself. And I believe that God awards you every time you step up and connect to the higher self. Because we talked about this briefly. If we admit the existence of God, we have to admit the existence of Satan. And if God is all loving and you're becoming a better version of yourself, He's always, of course, that means you're getting closer to God. So I think in the end, like, we all meditate. Like, people who want to find God, they either like pray, go to church, meditate, do all sorts of different stuff like psychedelics and all that. I think because we're all on this like giant rock floating and we don't know what we are doing. Like, we have basically conquered the earth. There's nothing else to do. We need to just do something that creates a meaning within us. And through that journey, we find freedom. Through that purpose, we find freedom. As your company really stands for it, I really resonate with what you say. It's really about finding within yourself what you desire that has been put by God for you to explore and really manifest, put into existence. Exert your will into it. Maybe your will is coming from God. Yes. So you are just a vessel through which God expresses itself.
Love that, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I guess that's like a lot of what Christianity actually says as well. I grew up Christian, so like a lot of the things we're saying, I'm like a lot of Christianity says a lot of these things, like a vessel of God, like make me a channel of thy peace. So like, I guess my question to you, and I had goosebumps when you said everything that you were saying. What do you believe in God? Did you find the word God helpful, unhelpful? What does all that mean to you, and that you are happy to talk about, I guess?
So my parents are missionaries.
Oh,
super Christian.
Oh, wow.
Went to church every single Sunday until I was 17, 18 years old.
Yes.
And I moved out to work at a hotel where I lived as well and worked. I started soul searching. I started actually because I was so bitter and unhappy with my life.
Yeah.
And I was starting to figure out why was this happening to me.
Yeah.
The first question I asked, if God loved me and this place is a hell, why would it put me there? Why does he want to test me if he controls, if he knows everything that's going to happen and everything he designed, is the way it's supposed to be? What's the meaning of it? Why am I going through it? Why is it testing me? What's the purpose of a test? Why do I have to go through all of this so that I can get to heaven? Is he just having fun with it? Is he trying to get validation? I just started answering these ridiculous questions. And I realized that perhaps systems and all these laws and rules that we put into the Bible and all these scriptures are just interpretations of certain people. And maybe different, maybe may not resonate with some other people. And definitely there's truth in it because those people, a lot of them have definitely connected with God. So there's truth in it, there's light in there. But at the same time, I realized through my difficulties and journeys, you must find your own God through your own life because nobody lives your life but you. So how I resonate with God and the idea of God is being the best that you can be. You actually, I believe that everybody knows what to do. At all times, you know you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to watch porn. You're not supposed to be rude to that lady who didn't do anything wrong to you just because, she's serving you and then you just ignorantly, say, thank you, and just like give her a look and make her feel bad or less than you. You know you're not supposed to do that. I think if you just follow your internal guide and be a good person, it's that simple. I think if you just be a good person, be the best that you can be, you'll be happier, you'll feel more vibrant, you'll attract better people, and start to understand your own version of God, who other people can also relate to, because humans are basically the same, man. Even though we all have our different complications, the way we are wired, the things that we want, we all want the same things. We all don't want the same things. Find your own God. Other people can see the light, like the way maybe a person can see, see the light from the Bible or whatever Muslim scriptures. They can relate to you, and then you can help them find their own light. That's how I see it and how I live my life.
I think that's really beautiful, man. And it's important to find God for yourself. So I had this really interesting conversation with someone, and it really changed my perspective on religion. Now, I think a lot of people are searchers and they find God. I think a lot of people really, really value some sort of framework to operate in. Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, okay, whatever. Actually, I'm starting to understand that religion really does have its place. Like, yes, there are people who are thought leaders, who are philosophers, and they push and they question, and that's necessary. But also, some people, it's not their calling, it's not why they're here, and they just want to live a good life. And having a framework to operate from that takes in all these principles of how to live a God-realized life and how to build a connection to God, and it's like, right, these are the frameworks. Okay, and something I really, really respect about Islam is praying the amount of times they do every day. And right, if we're talking about God here, and we're talking about like potentially like the creator of the universe, like the most powerful, just the power in that idea, they get down on their knees and on their hands and knees, and they put their forehead to the ground to pray. For me, that seems appropriate. Like that really, really seems appropriate for the way that you should respect God. And I really like that about Islam. And I have a few friends who are Muslim, and I'm I find that a lot of people in the Muslim faith, they're very principled. They're very, very principled, and they defend what they believe in
Absolutely.
adamantly, like vehemently, and I really, really respect that. I think personally, there's a lot of cultural things with all religions. Culture gets mashed into everything. Same with Christianity and Judaism. And Judaism isn't something I really know too much about, but Christianity, I think, is again like the Bible. The guy I was speaking to was Christian, and he just said, "Look, this is my good book. This is my guide." And I know that this is the important thing about religion. You need a yes and a no. The modern day spirituality, in my opinion, is one of the most dangerous things, because you're playing your own God. You're making the rules. Now, I think you need to find God yourself. I don't think you can. Well, God finds you, whichever way it is. Like, I don't think someone can be like, right, there's the Bible, there's the Quran, there you go, there's God. Like, that's not how it works. Like,
could you clarify what modern day spirituality entails?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can give you an example. So I was in one of the islands in Thailand recently, and again, I hope I don't come across as judgmental here, but I feel quite strongly about this. So I met this amazing, I'm going to say they're amazing, like amazing person. All people are amazing. So I met this person, and they were very open, they were honest, having a really good conversation with them, and they were describing themselves as sort of spiritual, etc. I was like, okay, that's great. And they said that they used to be quite promiscuous, and that now through those lessons they learned through being too promiscuous, they now teach people about how to have kind of sex and have relationships with their partner in a really deep way that is connecting for them. And I thought, oh, do you know what? I was like, that sounds interesting. Like, I'm a big believer that like pain comes before the lesson, and you should use your pain to help others. I was like, okay, that's interesting. So, kind of actually found out what this person did, and basically, in my opinion, well, basically it turns out they had OnlyFans and they just filmed themselves doing various things. And my personal opinion, I may be wrong, I think they're using spirituality as a way to justify, and again, because I'm not the judge, but I'm a big believer that doing things to yourself on camera for money and with your partner for money, I don't think that is, personally, I'll put an opinion out, I don't think that is right. I don't think that's what God wants us to do, personally.
I think a lot of people can agree on that,
yeah,
to be honest.
I know, yeah, I don't think that's like what...
Perhaps people who are actually involved in OnlyFans and they're living, really depends on it, they might really resist what you're saying now. But I think the majority, society as a whole, can have a general sense that maybe that's not the way to go.
Yeah, it's certainly like my future wife. That's not something that I'm going to be happy about at all. But again, like, it's not our place to judge anyone ever, and that's why it's difficult to sort of. But I do quite strongly believe that isn't that isn't the most valuable thing you can be doing. And I knew she was making an awful lot of money doing it. But this is the thing with spirituality. So the closer you get, I kind of view it like a knife edge. Like, the further you go down and the closer you get to good and to God, the devil's also there as well, or like however you want to visualize that. Like, the further you go down and the closer you get, like the stronger that other force gets, and you're on a knife edge. And I think with like modern day spirituality, when you're not guided by a set of principles like a religion that says, this is something you shouldn't do, this is something that is good, and it has that sort of very easy to understand, yes, no, yes, no. When you navigate that for yourself, you're opening yourself up for corruption at that late stage when you're getting close. And personally, I think this island that I was on, I saw a lot of that. There was a lot of sex rituals. So there was a lot of spirituality where people would go, and basically it was an orgy. Like, you would go and you'd do like this ecstatic dance, and then people would take their clothes off, and then it would basically turn into an orgy. But it was all framed under this spirituality, we're being ourselves. And personally, I think that's hedonism.
Yeah.
You know, and I
I've
understand.
seen movies like that, man.
Yeah.
Like where they say, hey, you need to relax and be yourself and just go with the flow, and then they start seducing you.
Yeah.
Yeah, demonic movies. I've seen
Grooming.
those, yeah.
So I guess that's kind of what I mean, and I don't claim to fully understand it, but you know that feeling when you get where you're like, I wouldn't want to go to one of those things. It's not just I wouldn't be comfortable. It's like there's something
Doesn't feel right.
something doesn't feel right about that at all. So I guess that's kind of where I've gone deep into that. Look, man, where can people find you? How can they follow along with your journey? How can they engage with you? Curious to hear.
You can find me on Instagram, Drown in Mood.
Nice.
My artist name is Mood.
Yes.
Drown in Mood basically means you get in your feels and you're drowning. You fall in love, so you're drowning inside this atmosphere of music, right? So Drown in Mood. If you type that onto Google, you can find me on YouTube and all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Mate, it's been real, and I'm sure we're going to have many, many more conversations. We could talk to you for hours and hours and hours.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, big love, brother.
Thanks so much
And,
for having me.
Of course, bro. Look forward to the next one.
Beautiful.
Yeah, good stuff, man.
Good chat.
Right, time to do those fucking tasks now.